Up next, we have Tom Clark, Ventures on Two Wheels, Conversational Connections.
So, am I on? I don't know if I'm on or not. Okay, so what I want to talk about is two things that I enjoy doing a lot, and that is riding motorcycles and camping. And the type of riding I do is called adventure touring. That basically means you take everything that you're going to use for camping and you're going to put it on the back of your bike and you're just going to go travel someplace. It's kind of like backpacking, and for me it's an extension of the backpacking I did in my teen 20s. Now, most of us in this room, we make our living staring at a computer screen, trying to solve problems for people, and we need to find ways to relax. And for me, riding a motorcycle is just that. It is therapeutic. It's also inherently dangerous, so you have to stay focused. You don't have time to think about what's going on with your project at work or what things you need to be doing around your house or your apartment, or what's going on with your extended family. You have to stay focused. That keeps you safe, but also allows you to enjoy your ride. And that intense focus tends to cleanse my mind. And at the end of the ride or at the end of the trip, I feel a lot better. Now, the type of riding I like to do, I have a couple different motorcycles, and one is a street motorcycle, and one is kind of a half and half. And the street riding I do, I like to find roads that are away from most people, that have as many corners in succession as possible. I like to ride them as fast as I possibly can. Some people don't like to do that, but to me it's an adrenaline rush, and even at 65, I still like that. Now, off-road riding, which is the other thing I do a lot of, that is exhilarating in a different way. You're not going as fast, but you have different things to be thinking about. You're going up some steep hill, and there's a couple of turns in it, and it's filled with softball-sized rocks. And you've got to keep your momentum up, because if you stop, you're not going to be able to get going again. And so you get around this corner, you got to pick another line. Oh goodness, there's a rock over here in a big hole. You got to avoid that. And you get up to the top, and you calm down a little bit. You get off your bike, you stop, and you take a look around, and you see some amazing vista. Maybe it's Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, or any number of mountain passes in Colorado, which I've enjoyed. And for those of you who backpack, you understand that feeling. Because when you're up there and you see that vista, that's what it's all about. So I get to do the same thing, except it's just not quite as hard. So when I'm going on these trips, people say, well, how do you figure out where you're going? I said, well, there's an organization that for the off-road riding I use, it's called Backcountry Discovery Routes, ridebdr.org. It's a nonprofit organization that creates routes, usually south to north through a state. They've done most of the western U.S., and just the last week or two, they finished the far eastern seaboard from Maine to Florida. I've done Washington, Idaho, and Colorado. Probably I'll do Wyoming next, given schedules. It just kind of depends. When we go on these routes, the organization provides GPS tracks, but we always have paper maps because there's good battery life in paper. No, thank you. On the last one that we did run in Colorado, it was spectacular. We had amazing weather, except for the first day. The first day when we were going from Wyoming into Colorado, it rained in the lower elevations, snowed in the higher elevations. So let's see, water, mud. Yeah, that's exactly what we were going through. And when you're on trips, you just ride what's in front of you. Could be snow, could be dirt, could be sand, water, who knows? You can either turn around and quit, or you keep going. Well, we keep going. That particular first day, there was a section that was about 4.5 miles long. It took us hours to make that 4.5 miles. So you can imagine what's happening. We were falling left and right. We had bent levers. A kickstand sensor broke. We had to bypass it. But that's part of the adventure. You pick yourself up, you solve the problem, and you get going. The other part of this is the camping. And I've always liked camping. When I used to backpack, the camping was the best part. And it's no different even when I'm doing it on a motorcycle. At the end of the day, you've got all your gear with you, you set up your tent, you've had your meal, you build a nice campfire. You got your camp chair with you and maybe an adult beverage, and you're gonna rehash the day. What went well, oh, that was amazing what we saw today. And that's one of the best parts about it. So what does all this have to do with communication, which is our theme tonight? Well, that very campfire is where you have conversations. And I've been writing with my brother, my younger brother, and my best friend, Tim Pontius. I've known him for about 45 years. So it's not really hard for us to find something to talk about. And for the people that know me, I usually don't have any trouble talking. But what level are you having a conversation? Is it just kind of on the surface? Or do you actually allow something to go deeper? Because relationships deepen when you are a little bit vulnerable, but that takes a little bit of courage. So imagine you're sitting around a campfire, and let's say your uncle has stage 4 liver cancer. He's got 3 to 6 months to live, and your buddies know this. And so they look at you, one of them looks at you and goes, "How are you doing?" Well, there's 2 ways you can respond to that. You can blow them off and just say, "I'm fine, be a tough guy." Or you can take a risk and be a little vulnerable and actually share how you really feel. Friendships and relationships deepen when you are vulnerable with the other person. It's worthwhile. And one of the things that happens on these trips is we've got all this gear packed up on the bus. Maybe we're all full of mud because we went through a muddy road. And people come up and go, "Hey, well, what are you doing? Where are you going?" And again, you have a couple of options. You can say, "Oh, I'm on a trip," and then off you go again. Or you can have a little respect for the person and actually have a conversation. Tell them where you've been. Tell them where you're going. Sometimes, if it's a local you're talking to, they might have a tip to make your trip better. And that happened once in Canada. We happened to be at a stop, and this lady came up and asked us about it and said, "Hey, when you go up toward Revelstoke, there's a turn right here at such and such a place. Stop. It's a half-mile hike. You're going to see the most beautiful, beautiful waterfall." And she was right. If we had not had that conversation, if we'd not stopped and was polite to her to listen, we'd have missed it. So it's worthwhile, even if just from a selfish point of view, have a conversation. Now, the other thing that happens, though, is you can initiate a conversation. I'm not that good at that, but my friend Tim is. He is a retired school teacher and is very good at putting people at ease. I'll give you an example. Several years ago, he and I were on a circumnavigation of the state of Washington, and we were at Cape Flattery, the northwesternmost corner of the continental U.S. And there's a nice little hike that goes down to the ocean, and it ends up in kind of a boardwalk deck, and it overlooks Tatoosh Island. And we were just enjoying the scenery, taking pictures, and I mean, it looks like something out of, if anybody remember the game Myst? It looks like that. It looks fake. It looks like somebody, created this thing. It's just so beautiful. Well, down comes this family, a husband and wife and a couple of kids. And I'm like, "Oh, they don't, they want their privacy. I'm not gonna bother them." Tim doesn't do that. He goes right up to him and says, "Hey, how are you doing? Where are you from?" And he starts this conversation. He looks at the kids and goes, "What's the most exciting thing you've done so far?" And I'm standing right there, so I get drawn in. And the point is, we had a great conversation with this couple. Found out they were a couple of firefighters. This was their first main family vacation that they'd taken, up from Oregon up to Washington. I can't remember where they were headed next, but it was a great conversation. And I wouldn't have done it. Tim did it. So I'm trying to be more like Tim and enjoy the people that I'm coming into contact with. The point of all of this is it's worth having a conversation with people. People may look different, they may act different, but people are people, and they're worth giving your respect to them to have a conversation. Don't let the culture of fear that sometimes is part of our American culture or even worldwide culture, don't let that inhabit you. You're adults. You don't have to stranger danger people. You can have a conversation, get to know them. You might meet a new best friend, and that would be worthwhile. Thank you.